Have you ever shouted at the TV? This usually happens either during sports games or horror movies. I can't believe the Jets did that. Or, stop, don't go in there. Why do these moments on screen elicit such a vocal reaction? Pause and jot a time when you or someone you were watching with made a vocal reaction to the events on screen. Is talking to the characters something we can learn to do? Or is it a reaction byproduct of already being emotionally invested in the subject or story? Why did the world react to the final battle of Endgame in such a vocal manner? 10 years of buildup, released in payoff.
Whosoever be he, worthy shall have the power.
Whatever, man, it's a trick.
Well, please be my guest.
Come on, Cap.
For news, how often do we vocally cheer or criticize the action of others? For textbooks, how often should we be talking with the author to make sure we are understanding what he or she is teaching? In fiction, we often talk to the characters. Most often, it's akin to what we would do in the situation or what we would want to do in the given situation. Talking to the people or characters on the page creates a connection and engagement. Allow ourselves to begin that conversation, and soon we will be talking, questioning, whispering, or shouting at the characters or people on the page. We return to Journey to the Center of the Earth, finding Professor von Hardwig and Henry traveling towards Iceland. Chapter 5. First Lessons in Climbing. Here we took another railway, which in 3 hours brought us to the capital, Copenhagen, where, scarcely taking the time for refreshment, my uncle hurried out to present one of his letters of introduction. It was the director of the Museum of Antiquities, who, having been informed that we were tourists bound for Iceland, did all he could to assist us. One wretched hope sustained me now. Perhaps no vessel was bound for such distant parts. I would say to Harry, why do you still harbor hope of the expedition being canceled? Look how much you've traveled so far, and how relentless your uncle is. If you didn't want to come, you should never have agreed. Own your decision. Alas, a little Danish schooner, the Valkyr, was to sail on the 2nd of June for Reykjavik. The captain, Mr. Bargen, was on board, and was rather surprised at the energy and cordiality with which his future passengers shook him by the hand. To him, a voyage to Iceland was merely a matter of course. My uncle, on the other hand, considered the event of sublime importance. The honest sailor took advantage of the professor's enthusiasm to double the fare. I would slap Professor von Hardwig upside the head and say, just because you're excited and impatient doesn't mean you should let the ferryman price gouge you. This church exhibited nothing remarkable in itself. In fact, the worthy professor had only been attracted to it by one circumstance, which was that its rather elevated steeple started from a circular platform, after which there was an exterior staircase, which would round to the very summit. Let us ascend, said my uncle. But I never could climb church towers, I cried. I am subject to dizziness in my head. The very reason why which you should go up. I want to cure you of a bad habit. But my good sir, I tell you to come. What is the use in wasting so much valuable time? It was impossible to dispute the dictatorial commands of my uncle. I yielded with a groan. There was no remedy. My lessons lasted 5 days, and at the end of that period I ascended blithely enough and found myself able to look down into the depths below without even winking, and with some degree of pleasure. I would thank Jules Verne for his small lesson about conquering fear. Science says that the best way to overcome fear is through repeated exposure. Harry has this with his 5 days of climbing and overcoming his vertigo. Are these discussions with Harry von Hardwig and Jules Verne as dramatic as yelling at the Jets or warning the blonde not to walk into the dark alley? Perhaps not, but a conversation has begun with the reader and the text. A relationship between the text and its lessons has grown. An engagement between the reader and the people or the characters in the text has grown. So congrats. You are now thoughtfully reading by talking, asking, whispering, or shouting at the text. Share your Think Aloud conversations at the elaconnection@gmail.com. Your Think Aloud may be shared in a future video. Join us next time when we think about comparing and contrasting. Till then, interact with your text as an active reader.